Hey guys, we went down to a studio in Columbus to hang out with the Strange Roads podcast, Mike and Bub. We had an amazing time. They were very gracious hosts. They lured us down there with libations and pizza.
And candy.
And a white van. So they give their own shout-outs at the end of this. So there's going to be two parts to this episode because we talked to them for about 3.5 hours. We talked literally about everything.
Yeah, a little taste of us.
So I want to take time now, because they don't give their own shout-outs till the end, to give them their shout-outs and where to find them and stuff like that. So if you're enjoying, their stuff, it's The Strange Road. Not Roads, The Strange Road. They're on all the podcast platforms and YouTube. They pretty much live stream all their episodes on YouTube, and then it comes out in recorded form later.
Mm-hmm.
Leave these guys reviews, please. 5 stars. 5 stars are nothing.
5 stars are nothing.
But they're new to the podcast world, but they've been in the media world for a long time.
Yeah, they got an awesome studio.
A really awesome studio.
Great video content.
Mm-hmm. They got some really big stuff coming out soon, too, so they're definitely going to be somebody to hang around and watch.
They're on the up and up.
Yep. So please give these guys a check out. All the podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, The Strange Road Podcast. Anything you need to add, Jaybird?
Other than I had a blast talking to them and visiting their studio. Much fun. And we look forward to doing some stuff with them in the future.
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to hit, what is that word? We're going to hijack their studio for an episode.
Oh, okay.
Kick them out.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Go to the corner, just going to come in with our fleet.
Yeah, and they can sit in the hallway.
Heck yeah. We're going to borrow this for a bit.
Yeah.
Leave Stoner.
Yeah, we need him.
Yeah. All right, guys. Enjoy the show.
Start a journey, not a fad. Kick off your fitness journey with up to $500 off Peloton Bike, Bike Plus, or Tread packages. Choose the package that will take your training to the next level with accessories like our cycling shoes, heart rate band, non-slip grip dumbbells, and more. Join now and you'll see why 92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later. All access membership separate. Offer ends January 8th, 2023. Excludes Bike, Bike Plus, and Tread Basics. See additional terms at onepeloton.com.
All kinds of old newspaper clippings.
Oh, really?
It's great. We use it for the show.
That's great.
Very cool.
Yeah,
it's definitely books.
That.
And they're not that. I think they're what? The big one's $16, and I think the little one's like $14.
I mean, it's a lot of material.
But it's all like town hall reports, newspaper clippings.
Just newspaper clippings.
A clip. Like
doesn't
a whole
say anything.
catalog.
Doesn't add anything.
Okay.
It's just the clipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as it
so
was
you can
reported.
do it however you want to do it. Like that's what
great.
we like. It's like it's exactly. It's
And
not watered down. It's not. It doesn't have a previous notion established with it.
Of
just
all kinds of different things, or
depends on which book you
specifically-
get.
Yeah.
So
Like-
monsters in print is biological creatures being seen.
Okay.
Oddities in
cool.
print is like the one's like 3 or 4 times the size of the rest of his books.
Just
There's
everything.
giants and poltergeist and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we
like,
need that.
Living clouds.
Oh, that's where you guys did a recent episode.
Living
Yeah.
clouds.
Man, that's tough to get for my brain. I'm pretty damn open-minded. The sky creature beast shit is odd.
Oh, come
I
on.
don't know if I can get
The
behind
sky
it, bro.
creature.
He definitely
Beast
opened my
shit.
mind to it.
Come on.
I
We're just
mean-
talking about giants with double rows of teeth, and you can't.
But bro,
you can't, an atmospheric
I mean,
jellyfish
well,
is
we
too
know
far.
there were giant people. I mean, we know
Yeah.
all like mammoths, rhinos. Here in the United States, we had a whole fauna
what you just
that
say,
went extinct after
they were
the
all
ice age.
quadrupeds.
Sure,
So
but
distribution
why
of
wouldn't
weight.
people grow that big? If we
Distribution
had
of
other-
weight. I'm not arguing. I do believe in
You
that they're
believe in
giant.
giants.
Yes.
Ah.
I'm just
But
saying
the
you got to look at that.
sky-
Is the distribution of weight is why those animals got monstrous.
But what are they doing in the sky? They're floating around. They're
Gas
flying.
filled.
They're gas
So,
giants.
Yeah,
let
they're
me
not
tell
heavy.
You, let me tell you
Okay.
the things that convinced me, because
Oh,
there's
gosh.
no way I believed in this.
Do you
until-
know about this subject?
No.
Sorry, I
Phil
didn't mean to get off
Bubbin
on
for-
giants.
No,
No, that's okay.
We can go
It's
back
okay.
to it.
'Cause
I'm
this is
more
interesting.
this is
because I could talk about this for about 18 hours.
okay.
And you have.
Let's strap
I
in.
have.
What convinced me is he told me about this NASA study they did in 2019.
Oh.
Was that one of the latest ones? Is they searched for life up in the atmosphere, and
Extremophiles.
yeah, basically,
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
what we thought were.
They were looking for maybe to find 5 species. Like, we're looking for extremophiles.
Yep.
And
yep.
when they did the test, they came back with the results. They found every clade of life, of invertebrate life, that living in the atmosphere. So, Justin can explain that better.
That's a big thing to say.
So make that
They found
in layman's
first
terms.
off, right off the rip, over 4,000 species. They didn't know what to do with the study because it wasn't prepared for it. They were like, no, we're only supposed to find 4.
So that ranges from like,
every biological clade of life that's
fungus.
not a vertebrate
Okay.
has a representative in the upper atmosphere that we just barely found out about. That's jellyfish. That's fungi.
How?
That's bacteria. Well, there's several ways. Think about,
The air is kind of like the water, but just a little bit less
that's
dense.
the big
The
thing.
jellyfish
It's the exact
through
same.
40,
Right.
No, it has the
40 space.
Has the
No,
exact
they're
just
gas
like the
filled.
air. Okay,
has the exact
but-
same makeup, right?
but
It's
like
water
in
in
the
the air.
sea,
So you know what?
in the
You know what-
water-
Ocean in the sky.
Do you know what a man of war is?
Yes.
So that's a gas-filled sack they control.
Okay. It's
wait, what?
it's blowing up
That-
air
that bubble
to
on
move
its
it.
head?
Yeah.
That's actually a gas-filled sack to keep buoyant.
A man of war. The jellyfish.
It's not a jellyfish.
Yeah. It's
It's
Portuguese
actually
man of war
yeah.
isn't a jellyfish?
It's a cyanophore, which is it's a big word. I'm about to go off.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
Don't worry about the big
strap in.
words. My first year of college was marine biology, although I didn't go to class
Okay,
often.
So a cyanophore,
But I still remember a lot about
It's
platyhelminthes and
it's not a
chondrichthyes
jellyfish.
and osteichthyes. And,
it's a group of colonial organisms all holding on together to form one body.
oh, so it's like mushrooms.
No,
Mycelium connecting together. They're all one.
not really. It's a very different thing. It's like a whole bunch of little animals, like us. Like if we hold at arms and try to do something, that's what a cyanophore is. So some of these cyanophores are just for digestion. All they do is they give the rest of the body gives them their food. They break it down and redistribute it. Some of them are for steering. Some of them are for gas production. Some of them are just controlling.
That's kind of how we built up to where we are, right?
Exactly, but they never got out of that stage.
Yeah,
and
I'm
they
with you.
took
Right, they never
some
advanced.
of the craziest forms.
Okay.
I mean, there are things that look like sky in the bottom of the ocean. They look like these giant sky pigs with kites with metal chains and all. It's almost impossible to describe because what you're looking at, you're like, that can't be an animal.
In the water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah.
how they get up there is blow-ups. And any mountain range pushes all kinds of nutrients into the upper atmosphere is what they found. There's actually a lot more food, and it's a lot warmer, and there's actually liquid water that we weren't expecting
Where?
in the upper atmosphere.
Really?
So it's a petri dish. And it is one of the least impacted environments above the ozone layer. It's one of the least impacted environments for
So it's not where all the
international
pollution's
So it's super
collected.
clean.
below it.
It's just
So
below,
you're talking the pollution's below.
Okay.
We're talking above.
above.
So it's
like,
clean where it's at.
What is it?
like-
Yeah, it has
untouched.
radiation, but life has already gotten over that.
Here's
the
thing.
radiation,
This is interesting.
That high radiation being up there, too, is going to amplify cellular change and...
But it can also cause a lot of cancer and stuff
Right.
like that. But jellyfish got rid of that a long time ago.
they don't get cancer.
Now, there's immortal jellyfish. You ever heard about those guys?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
live forever.
Well, they hit the reset button. Whenever they're too tore up or they're about to die, they become a zygote again and become another jellyfish.
They just
but it's
minimize
genetically the same thing.
So they just basically respawn.
Yeah. Basically, I'm a baby now.
Beep.
Yeah,
Reset
yeah.
button.
Yeah.
I'm a baby now.
Yeah. So, but we found those guys up there. They're at least representatives of their family group. There are jellyfish in the upper atmosphere that we have documented. And that's not as in the jellyfish you're expecting to see with these big gelatinous creatures like this is
floating
micro. Yeah, these are small animals that we found in this first study.
Microcryptids.
It happens a lot.
Orangutan.
I had a theory about this. Like, what if the Mothman is just microscopic? What if there's all kinds of microcryptids around us all now?
All the time.
even? Sure.
Yes.
I would believe it. Why not?
So,
It's just scale and perspective.
but yeah, these creatures are sighted all the time. They probably are gas filled. We have buoyancy gas that we produce. A lot of animals use buoyancy in the water. They produce gases in their system to
Right.
create themselves to be negatively buoyant or positively buoyant.
Right, fish. the
Yeah. So
bladder
So check
line.
this out. Our friend David Lone Bear sent a pass. He's a Mi'kmaq elder, and he's been putting mylar balloons way up in the Earth's atmosphere.
Is something eating them?
He's
Jesus.
gone into. So we had a interview that kind of fell apart a little bit. Where we went to Maine to interview him, and we were going to get into some things that he's been capturing with these balloons that are highly rigged out with technology. He's able. I'm not going to go into how this technology is created or anything like that, but basically, he's capturing a lot of different things flying around up there, and things that I don't think he ever expected to find. So I'm wondering,
Start
like,
shining that
are
flashlight
some
in
of
dark
these
places.
moving things? Because so he's going up. This NASA scientist did not believe that he was actually doing this. He's like, there's no way you're putting up these balloons that high.
Do you know how high they
He's
were going?
going just subspace. So it's like 75,000 feet.
Yeah,
I
above
believe.
the mesosphere.
So he was just above the mesosphere.
Yeah.
And he's seeing like traffic, like organized traffic of things moving around.
Yeah,
up
they're
there.
jellyfish.
There you go. Yeah. Oh man.
So wow. I want.
So you know why you don't see them? That's the thing that people
I
ask.
was gonna say that.
You know why people don't see them?
Dude, you just
this is
smacked my brain.
This is the other thing that
There's
convinced
traffic
me.
up there. Yeah, it's jellyfish.
Yeah, it's jellyfish. I was not expecting you to say
So
that.
you know, almost all air traffic is below 10,000 or
Sure.
the 10 miles.
Right.
You know, the human eye unabated can only see 10 miles. You cannot see right now. Let's say it's perfectly crystal clear outside, bright sunny day. You cannot see into the next layer of the atmosphere.
Really?
You can't. Our biological systems in our eyes just don't allow it. Other animals, sure, some of them can, some of them can't.
Okay.
We just can't.
Yeah.
Now make that creature slightly translucent.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, you're not seeing.
There's
nothing.
no reflective
There could be
material.
thousands of them.
There's no skin, right? So like, if you're
even
pointing
they're
an
shiny,
infrared at it,
Well, some
some are really metallic.
some could be,
And
and
they
they
like-
could
so
be
they look
mistaken
like
for.
UFOs,
Some of them
like
lick
ships.
you. Yes.
Could be.
lick you.
Yeah, the pink
Explain.
fog and then the dog tongue of Ireland and stuff like that. And
I've
really, this
never
big
heard of
living
that.
cloud that they tell you if you encounter it, you got to lay down flat.
So is it one of these things that these other organisms link up to create this?
And that
pink
could be.
cloud?
It could be
Okay.
a cyanophore, or it could be
Yeah.
more like a big amoeba.
I never thought I would have such a
Dude.
strange theory presented.
That's why we're
seemed
doing this.
rational,
That's why we do this
and also
show.
gave me pause of like, how didn't we think of that before?
I've done.
This is the problem with
Hundreds of
thinking we have
hours.
everything settled and we
So
have
you
everything
got real
understood.
into this recently, like this. You went down a rabbit hole, like and
subscribe
got
to the other.
hooked.
Yeah,
I don't
so
think
we
we know
have
anything.
several
too.
surprises coming
Me
out
too.
later this year with this topic.
Nothing.
So that's why I kind of dance around it, because we have a lot of big
Yeah, I don't
stuff
want to
happening
spoil.
on the back
I don't want
end
to spoil.
No
for this
problem.
project.
No problem.
Because I've done probably 200 hours in research, if not more, just on this.
That's great. I want to know when this happens because I want to
Oh,
watch
we'll be
this.
tuning in. That's
Yeah.
for sure. You got me because I see like we talked a little bit at CryptidCon because you guys were like
Oh, when I was drunk screaming, they're all mushrooms. Pointing at people.
and then I listened to. I didn't get a chance to finish the episode that you guys did on the like sky creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So the part I just like, man, it's tough for me to. I'm really open-minded. I mean,
It makes more biological sense.
but when you
than
start
anything
breaking
else.
that
Yeah.
down, that's what I mean. Like the actual biological
So here's the-
probability
Okay.
Right, there you go. Good word for it.
that something could exist, because I mean in school we learned about extremophiles living in ocean floor vents that are like basically
There are creatures on this planet that live in 2,000 degrees and eat sulfur.
and they eat nitrogen and sulfur and weird
yeah.
shit.
And you're going to tell
gas.
me a big balloon creature can't exist?
So again,
But-
you
okay,
said they
but
got up
wouldn't
there from the mountains.
planes
So
be
there's-
hitting these things all the time?
No,
like as
we don't
they're-
have any traffic up
But
there.
they're not going that far. So they're
Oh,
just
the
way
NASA
way
green
up
slime.
there. They're just way
What
way
about the
up
NASA
there.
greens? No, okay, hold on.
There's a
There's
lot
too much
happening.
going on.
Let
Right?
me-
I'm excited.
I need to know
Sorry.
about how they got to that level. How did they get up there?
Basically,
Calm down.
Earth's always pushing stuff up above the ozone layer. So
How?
we're talking about the So we live in the troposphere. That's our level. That's our atmosphere that we're dealing with. It's pretty much homogeneous from where we are till 10 miles up.
Okay.
So it's kind of each layer of the atmosphere almost has an actual hard line. It's not like what we're seeing. You ever seen when ocean currents meet and like one's green, one's blue?
It's kind of like those thermometers that have the different layers in them. You know what I'm talking about?
So yeah, they don't mix. They don't want to mix. They're very different medias.
I know what you're talking about. I have two of them at home.
There you go. So
Galilean,
now you gotta- yeah.
Galilean,
thermometer,
yeah.
yeah.
Now you got a visual.
Yeah, okay.
So we are constantly, the Earth's surface is constantly upwelling stuff up there. Mountain ranges, they found out in the Rockies, is constantly pushing surface-bound nutrients into the stratosphere and into the mesosphere.
Through,
Just wind currents.
okay.
Because you basically have this big pile of wind.
You're
that's
up tall
taking
enough,
all this stuff,
swooping
and
it
it hits the
pushing it.
mountain,
Air
and then
currents.
shoots up.
Gotcha.
So
So it's like an escalator up to the different layers.
literally
the
have said that. It's an escalator.
Yeah.
And then some of these organic UFOs that get caught down here, they seem to be not doing very well.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't want to be down
stories
here.
of biological ships where they're conscious spacecraft,
Yeah.
where they're actually like have organs
Yes.
and flesh.
So I think
and
these are part
bone.
of our biosphere.
Okay.
These are members of our biosphere. So the biosphere is the family tree. So even though we're vastly different on the ends of the branches from everybody else, we're still attached at the roots.
Yeah.
So these are still members of our biosphere.
I mean, we're
They're
close.
just a different, odd
Fungus.
branch.
We come from fungus.
Yes, animals came from fungi.
Yes.
Not the other way around. Fungi are an ancient group.
Very, very. Probably came from asteroids and meteors. Like psychedelic mushrooms, like the tales of the ancient people of like essentially like mushrooms gave us religion, gave us consciousness, allowed us to want to expand our worldview.
Be self-aware, maybe?
The stoned ape theory.
Yeah.
Terrence McKenna.
Yeah.
So, we have this biological relationship with fungus in terms of mycelium networks.
Oh, Jay's wearing it.
What you got?
Organic UFO.
Oh,
sweatshirt.
that's what that is. Okay.
Everybody hates cows is where the episode's from. Everybody hates cows.
That's awesome.
But
I love your guys' shirts, by the way.
Oh, thank
I
you.
wear mine.
Hi, Pear.
They're so comfortable.
Oh, yeah. And the guy in Sweden does all of our art for us. He's awesome. His name's Pear.
Pear.
He's actually starting to work on some audio stuff for us.
Okay.
We're keeping him heavily employed.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool dude.
We run a town in Sweden now.
You got a whole town working for you.
Yeah, we have a radio
Dude,
ad
that's
out there in
awesome.
Sweden going on.
Yeah, we did have a radio ad in Sweden.
It's
How
still
weird
going
is that?
on.
That's
really
so cool.
Awesome.
We have a
So
radio ad
weird.
running around somewhere in Sweden.
That's awesome.
But with these creatures, and this is what we like to say is about 5% of UFO sightings.
Right.
It's not your nuts and bolts. It's not. It's a very small.
Well, you do see these, like, translucent
Oh, yeah.
balls
The
of
manta rays,
energy
the-
and cloud almost, where people are saying they're a UFO sighting.
Yeah.
When it's like almost like plasma.
We've had 200 people see a cloud throw up a bunch of bones.
Wait.
We didn't personally.
We didn't. We have the story.
The story.
Okay.
There's a story.
Where's that coming
From
out
this
of?
book?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's from Benedict's book.
Time
we
period?
need to
1879.
Yeah, late 1800s.
What?
And this giant black cloud was hovering over this town. And everybody was looking at it because it was weird because there's no storms. I'm like, this is super weird. And then proceeded to throw up a whole bunch of gar bones and gar scales. So gar are heavily armored fish.
Yeah.
They have interlocking scales. They're like
giant,
diamonds.
huge fish. Fresh
So
water.
they have all. This cloud threw up a whole bunch of bones and then left. And like, well, that was like it freaked everybody. It
Well,
made it
that
all
was
the way-
weird.
It made it from Louisiana all the way to New York. So we went back and researched. At this time, there was a drought, and thousands of gar were dying in the drought. So that reeked. I think some of these creatures are scavengers. So I think it filled itself up with as much as rotting food as it could take.
Right.
Digested what it could, and threw up the crap it couldn't eat.
That's
Just
strange.
we have so many animals that do that. Owls threw up owl pellets.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
swallow
So you
everything.
think they
and then
come
they throw up
down
the part they don't
Yeah.
want.
into our world, into our space
Some
as
of these
well?
groups
Okay.
do, and we have it categorized in about 6 different types. Because I'm a biologist. Is what I did. So,
So you being a logical guy, like you've dug deep enough
this makes
to
perfect sense.
where, like DA, for example, talking to him, he's a former cop. Got into the North American Dogman Project from just, he not a cop anymore, but took all those research skills to go out into the field to search for Bigfoot, and grew up on his uncle's farm in Missouri, where his uncle's like, listen, these things are real.
Yeah.
And you need to stay out of this area of the farm
Yeah.
because it's no joke.
Right.
Warning him when he's a kid. But then, DA having that background, like you said, being a biologist, where he's got a different sense of being able, like he has a very logical mind. Like he's not just some weird dude running around in the woods. No, he's very on point.
You've been
very
taught a
measured,
certain way to think about things too.
very well researched.
Yeah.
Like you are as well, Justin. But you strike me as a logical person, but when you dig into something enough, and it's the information's there, it's hard to turn away from. And your logical brain's going, no, dude, this can't be real. But then you look further.
So
That's how giants and all this
Yeah.
weird shit.
My logical
for
brain,
me,
literally, we were
because
listening.
it's like, what? No, there's no way.
Betty and Barney Hill was the first one for me that made it all connect.
Yeah.
The Betty and Barney Hill abduction.
Yep.
That they were mushrooms, or some of them are
They were-
fungi based.
Yeah.
Some of these creatures we're seeing are actually atmospheric fungus.
Why do you say that about Betty and Barney Hill?
Well, their recounts when they were hypnotized
They
and
said
what
that
they were
were
seeing.
Well, what we went off of was the Men in Black questioning immediately after.
Mm-hmm.
In the 60s and 70s, they were asking if you were missing any nitrates. And Barney Hill was like, well, what the hell is a nitrate?
Right.
And he's like, well, fertilizer, processed meats, stuff like that. And he's like, I did. I had 400 pounds of fertilizer in the trunk. And he's like, well, do you still have it? No, it's gone. And then they stopped questioning. They wouldn't go back to the questioning. There was a hot dog vendor or a hot dog truck guy that did he was missing like 10,000 pounds of hot dogs.
Stop. This is all. So, okay. There's a little segue that's going to roll back into this in a weird way. Stranger Things. I just rewatched it again. I've seen it in the last season. Sorry if I'm spoiling it for anybody that hasn't watched it. I don't care. I do care. But the last season is everybody's eating this fertilizer.
See, I haven't watched the last season.
Seen this?
Yet.
Oh yeah,
but it's a hive mind of all these.
Yeah, it's a fungus,
things.
probably.
And they're getting
but they're eating this fertilizer.
Trying to transform.
I have never heard that in my life.
Tremors,
hundreds of Men in Black.
Tremors 3.
Questionings.
That's part of the storyline in Tremors 3.
Ooh, I've never seen Tremors 3.
When they change into the butt blasters. Like, I've watched every Tremors movie ever.
Yeah,
made.
I've seen one and two.
There's 12 of them.
Oh, I did not know that.
100%.
The last one was the...
they get worse and worse as
Shrieker
time.
Shrieker Island.
Shrieker Island. That's the third one.
Is Kevin Bacon any more than 1 and 2?
No, he's only in
no
1
wonder
and 2.
why.
But the other dude is one of the main characters.
Okay.
The dude with all the guns with
yeah.
Reba McEntire. He's in
basically
every
the
one.
Dale Gribble guy.
Dale Gribble. Yeah, it becomes his series. It does.
It becomes his series. But those creatures to change into like in Tremors 2, they turn into the snakes, into the little, they branch off, and the one big worm makes the 3 they makes 3 more of these smaller ones that are like all they see in infrared, kind of like the Predator. But then in the third one, or Shrieker Island, they eat fertilizer, and they eat like engine parts and shit like that.
Because it's not food to you, but it's food to something else.
Right.
We have creatures right now that eat steel and titanium.
Yeah.
They love it. They have a digestive system. They can break that down in for organic nutrients.
Yeah.
So odd food sources can really point you to a branch in the family tree.
Right.
So with nitrogen and any nitrates,
fertilizer,
the hot dogs. Like I use that guy because he got abducted, and he came back, and all the hot dogs in his whole semi were gone. And he's like, well, what the hell? They were talking to me, telling me I was special. They just took the hot dogs.
Got robbed.
Told me I was special.
The hot dog cart got interstellar robbed.
The 70s
that's
and a little bit in the 80s.
A lot of nitrates in
of
hot dog.
encounters.
We're
I've
eating
never
that
heard
shit.
anything about that before. That's really strange.
But
I mean, it makes sense.
It wasn't just them. It was that whole time period they were asking that question.
The 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. All the Men in Black that were coming back and questioning abductees, that was always on their roster of questions.
Yeah.
Not most time it didn't come back to it, but a couple of these cases, it's like, well, yeah, I did, but I don't know what happened to it.
Again, another segue, Men in Black, the movie. Mm-hmm. You know any bugs that come down and crave sugar water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come down, crave fertilizer. But
there's all these parallels all the time. I always think it's being kind of thrown in our face.
A really good example.
They tell you what's happening before it happens. They have to. It's like part of that. It's
part of the game.
It's part of that karmatic wheel. Like the people in the know use Hollywood and movies
for sure
to essentially tell us things through the movies. That way, it doesn't karmatically affect them for not sharing it to the world.
We put it out there.
They put it out there,
they have to tell you.
And you know, it's there's like 10% of fact mixed in with fiction, but that 10% is what protects them from their karmatic wheel turning on them. So you know, but the first, I mean, that makes sense.
So how about this?
100%. Man, I'm starting to be a believer. Starting to believe.
It's not
DA
even...
got me believing in Dogman because I'm just like, grew up, heard about the Michigan Dogman probably when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So we got the internet when I was in like 5th grade. So I'm 40. I'm a little bit older. We're a little bit older than you guys. So I didn't grow up with the internet.
Ooh, the dial-up.
But it was.
I still had
I had
dial-up.
Windows 3.2, Windows 3.1 operating system. And, early on, you could find stuff about Mothman. Like, even before the movie came out, I was online looking into this stuff. Yeah, exactly. You go to chat rooms, kind of like Reddit, but not as specific for topics. But you could go into rooms and talk about this stuff. And, there's just no access. You had Unsolved Mysteries might talk about a Bigfoot encounter. You might have, it comes to like what's on TV. There was just not that beyond belief, fact or fiction, Unsolved Mysteries. So, you start to hear all the historical stuff early on with the internet with, what happened in Point Pleasant. And start to realize, like, holy shit, like there's a lot of stuff in our own backyard.
Oh yeah.
Ohio, I have a theory about this. I really believe that there's so many actors, very talented people, artists, people that go on to start really successful businesses that grow up in Ohio. And I think it has something to do and why there's so many cryptids and weird stories and paranormal shit. You know what I mean? Like Athens is the most haunted place in America, essentially.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
And it's ridiculous. Stoner went to college there.
I went to Stoner. I was in Nelsonville.
Yep.
Yep.
But
the Athens Walmart.
But this area, the River Valleys, has been a hub for paranormal activity, Native American legends, giants, the earthworks, and the geometric nature and the astronomical encoding that's happening with all the. There was 10,000 of these at one point in Ohio.
Oh yeah.
So
we talked on the phone how many were destroyed in a couple of years.
Yes, and 4,000 destroyed
in 3 years,
essentially from like 1901 to 1904.
Yeah, something stupid. Just
systematically destroyed as towns were expanding. It was all about manifest destiny. Once John Wesley Powell took over, the giants, all that stuff went away, and it was just
or boxed up and sent.
And a lot of those guys were eugenicists.
They were snorting those bones.
Yeah.
We have a meme about that. Andy Arugula sent us that, like, because we talked about it in our Smithsonian episode. We were like, "What are they doing with them? Oh, they're snorting them,
and grind them up and snorting them in the back room."
Yeah,
getting yayed up.
Yeah,
Smithsonian's the worst place.
Yeah, and
it doesn't ever bode well for it.
Well,
no, if you hear that, if you see that involved with any of your monsters or historical sites, you're like, well, there goes that.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Do you know what they're doing with NAGPRA?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
With the
I know what NAGPRA is
the repatriation of bones.
Well, yeah. Do you know what they're doing with them?
Artifacts. Yeah.
Right now, they're sending them back to tribes. So that's what they were supposed to be doing.
That's not what they're doing with them.
What are they doing with them?
They've taken.
They're keeping them.
No. They've taken for this specific section, NAGPRA. Anybody that don't know, because I know this is going on our feed too.
Yep.
North American
repatriation.
Yeah, I can never remember.
Grave repatriation.
Grave and artifact.
Yeah.
Grave and artifact. But basically, it's only supposed to be if a tribe member or that tribe, first off, still has to exist.
Yeah.
And they have to ask or want the stuff back.
Right.
They're not supposed to go in and take it unless somebody's like, oh no. So it's made for if, like, let's say we were a Native American and we come in and we see something from our tribe in this area. Like, okay, we want that back. And they have to give it back or they have to work out a deal. We're like, yeah, we'll put it was donated by X tribe.
Okay.
Or, they work it out where maybe 6 months it's in the museum, 6 months it's back home, whatever. That kind of stuff. Then that's the most, like 10% of the law, that's the artifacts that get used in this law go into that. With NAGPRA, what was it, 2000, and what we looked at, 2001, since 2001, I think it was when we did that episode. They have taken back 700,000 objects and over 100,000 remains that don't have a tribe and nobody's asking for them. So they went through all these small little museums.
Right.
And took everything.
Yeah.
And guess what they're doing with them?
What?
They're burying them in a hole.
Mm.
They're reburying them.
Undisclosed
on an undisclosed location.
See, I would love to. I'm going to ask Jeff about. We have Jeff Wilson coming in on Friday. I'd like to see because we've talked about that a few times just in private, but it kind of goes into a lot of the stuff that Ohio History Connection and the Smithsonian, these kind of high level organizations, and then more on a macro level, Ohio History Connection. I mean, they've been running these sites, Serpent Mound, since the 1900s. And it's still a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
What is the hold up?
Right. Is it a mystery?
How do we not know what is going on
here? A borehole
here?
coring system down there. It's a half an inch wide
Yeah.
We will know when the bottom of it was built and who built it.
Right. And
it
there's
don't destroy
layers
the site. It don't mess with the site.
underneath.
You will know that whole system of Serpent's Mound, who was started it, who then, and then who then, and then who then, and
but
then
doesn't
who
that
then.
always seem kind of funny? With like, no, we don't need to know.
No.
We already know.
Yeah, we already know. Okay. We know that there's this chieftain is buried 2 foot down into Serpent's Mound, and we got it. But yeah, we did that NAGPRA just for a Patreon episode, and that was a lot of research because it was crazy. And they weren't even
I'd
hiding
say I know
it.
very little about it. We just found it out when we were looking into the Smithsonian.
They weren't even hiding it.
Yeah.
They're saying we've taken 300 objects back and given them to X tribe and this tribe, but we've taken 700 artifacts and 113,000 remains, and with no tribe to claim them. And I'm like, whoa, because it says that right in the article, or right in their basically their post about it. Like, well, it says right in the beginning that you only take it when people want it back. So they have no tribe to go back to. So these tribes are extinct, and then they just bury them in a hole out in some no-name place. And this is when, I think it was 2001. I can't remember. I drank too much. But this is right when the Smithsonian was getting a lot of heat for taking stuff.
Okay.
They were bullying smaller museums. It was getting public, though. It was just becoming a lot more public. NAGPRA was passed like 2 months after that. And it had been in the weeds forever.
Yeah.
And then finally, like, okay, we can use this.
Yeah.
So we put it out.
Get our agenda done.
Yeah, and then they put some, and it worked. NAGPRA works super well for the Native American tribes that want to get their items back. If they've had the scene in a museum for their whole lives that they can't do anything about.
Right.
That's great for it. It's what the Smithsonian's doing with the law.
Right. It's got a double edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a backdoor built in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's crazy.
Yeah. When we researched that episode, I mean, it was farmer so and so or construction crew, etc. They dug up X amount of mounds and found 10, 12 foot tall, whatever. And then the Smithsonian Museum came by and
every article at the end
grabbed them. And
the monsters. How many monsters have we done? We're at the end of the story, and they called the Smithsonian
for monsters.
Yes.
Give me an example, please.
So,
because I'm not aware of
South
these.
America, one of our atmospheric creatures, a bunch of miners had a giant manta ray. So our manta ray type that we go over.
Sure.
Flying overhead. They shot it to death. They just kept shooting it till it died. And then it crashed, and like, what do we do with this? Well, let's call the Smithsonian. This is in South America. And they came and got it and only left them with a piece of the thing.
Yeah.
And it rotted. I mean, it rotted pretty quick.
Yeah.
They took like a 20 foot wide, like a 30, 40 foot long creature. They came to grab it without any question and left. Snallygaster. The Snallygaster got involved. That creature we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The Smithsonian got involved with it. The carcass that I cannot.
Supposedly.
Thank you. Was from that creature. The Smithsonian taught. Do you know about the short-faced bear, the famous short-faced bear from the 50s?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know why that's important?
The snub-nosed bear?
No, why with the Smithsonian. So this guy out in the 50s or 60s was a big game hunter. He'd go up and just anywhere in like Canada and go. He'd basically fly in a biplane, a puddle jumper. He'd land in a lake and go hunt that area. He shot a colossal, what he thought was the weirdest, ugliest grizzly bear. And he's like, well, this isn't. He's like, but he kept feeling like this is not normal. So he took the meat, he took the hide, and he took the skull because he had to get back on his plane and leave. And he's like, well, what? I don't know. He's like, this isn't a grizzly bear, but I don't know what it is.
Right.
I think here's a count. It was 3,500 pounds.
It's a big bear.
It was a little bigger than a big polar bear, like a monster polar bear.
3,500 that's a sizable bear.
It's a small hippo.
That's a bear.
So yeah, a lot more of an attitude. So he goes to Smithsonian, and there's like, it was a little different in the old. I think this was in the 50s or the 60s.
I can't remember.
But anyways,
decade.
They do an intake form, and the whole thing is he's going to get their skull back. They're IDing it. They have biologists that just work for them that ID species for other collections, because they have the ultimate. That's the whole point. That is the original point of the biological collection. There is, so let's say you think you discovered a new species of parrot.
Right.
They're going to go through their whole collection of that species and make sure it's not a color variance or something weird.
Right.
Okay. It's kind of not as important anymore with our genetics. We can look at the genes and tell if it's a different species or not.
Right.
But in the old days, it was really important because it's like, oh no, that just happens to be what the cockatoos look like in southeast Australia. That's just what they look like. You just happen to find it a little further out of its range.
Right.
So it's not a new animal. It's just a little out of home.
Yeah.
So with the short-faced bear skull, that's what I'm calling it, they took the measurements. He had the intake form. He's supposed to get it back in 3 weeks. And so he has this paper this guy gave him that has all the measurements and what the Smithsonian got. Basically like your laundry tag. So you can come back and you can get your item.
Right.
And 3 weeks go by, and he calls and nothing. Calls and nothing. Well, finally, he like months go by. And he goes there and he's like, I got my form. Where's my skull? And they're like, it's actually on loan at another museum. And he's like, what the hell? It's not yours. So he goes to that museum, like, we don't have it. And then he gets the runaround forever. Finally, they give him a skull back.
It's not his.
It's a classic grizzly bear skull that's like a quarter of the size. But he has the intake form with the measurements of the original skull.
Right.
And he's like, what the hell? And the only reason this got any stink is because he had some money. He was not a poor man.
Right. So he had resources.
Yeah, but you cannot legally sue the Smithsonian.
Right, because they're sheltered because...
It has to be approved by Congress.
And they're across seas. Like, they're actually technically organized.
There's a Congress bill.
They were started by a guy from across seas.
Yeah. There's a Congress bill that does not allow you to sue for anything in the Smithsonian's collection without Congress approval.
They're very powerful.
That doesn't smell fishy.
It's a super powerful organization.
And the board that makes up.
We did a whole episode on just the board of directors of the Smithsonian.
Oh, boy.
The billionaires. Bill Gates' friends.
Yes.
There's only one guy. There's only one guy that's supposed to be on the board. And he's the best, is the art guy.
Art collector.
He was the best art appraiser.
Art appraiser, yes.
Yes.
So the Smithsonian could be maybe, say, the front-running office for the Men in Black.
Yeah, it's basically if you have something, they can come in and take whatever they want. If they,
Was it?
they stole a T-Rex.
They seem like they get called out to strange encounters,
Yes.
sightings, happenings.
They became the leading biological entity on a purpose, or historical entity, or whatever, because they're everything. They're the ultimate museum. And we talked about it. There's two Smithsonians. There's the front of house.
Yeah.
The normal museum.
Right.
That has no idea what's going on behind the curtain.
Sure.
Right.
Some of them know there's something back there, but they know they don't ask.
Then you have the Black Ops Smithsonian.
The real Smithsonian.
Yes.
The monster behind that red curtain.
Yep.
There's something back there.
100%.
And that's like, because when you go to Smithsonian, it's just a museum. The buildings are just a museum.
Right.
There's nothing there. It's
like
not
the vault in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's the Smithsonian.
That's the Smithsonian,
real one.
with all the crates piled up.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, dude, Ohio History Connection is. I feel like all these sub organizations are all based off of what the Smithsonian did first. So the Ohio History Connection, they control everything.
The babies.
They control everything in Ohio. When it comes to wanting to dig or have an archaeologist, somebody like Emily Aldrich from the Portsmouth Museum, or the Southern Ohio Museum, wanting to do work on the Portsmouth earthwork, which there's only a small portion of that left, and to be able to fly a drone, to do LiDAR, to do magnetometer, to do any type of research, you got to jump through so many hoops, and especially she's trying to write a book and do presentations and try to get information to let people know about these, and she's just running into walls after walls, and you have and she's not like an independent crazy some kind of side researcher that's just out there trying to sell a book. She's one of the directors of the Southern Ohio Museum. So it's such a control. They have so
That's
much
the point.
And to now, I mean, back in the day, we used to go to Serpent Mound. When the first time we interviewed Jeff, we knew the park ranger there, that Arc of Appalachia, when they used to run it before, like Ohio History Connection took it over a few years back, where they banned all ceremonies if you're not a part of like what they say can happen, or the Shawnee from Oklahoma. They basically banned Friends of the Serpent Mound doing their winter solstice. They light the whole serpent and put candles around it during the winter solstice. Not allowed to do that anymore. Our friends from Serpent Mound Star Knowledge Group, Terry and Tom, they bring elders from all over the world. They've had people from Australia, African tribe elders, all over the place to come and see Serpent Mound and to do ceremony with different cultures from all. Not allowed to do that anymore. They're not allowed to, and these guys are the ones that have been preserving these places. In all actuality, a lot of the early fundraising of Serpent Mound, Jeff Wilson and his wife Delcy, and Terry and Tom and all these people, and now they're just shunned.
Wow.
They're just not allowed to connect. And if you're not part of the in group and it's not approved, like Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse show, where he's literally in front of the camera and they're closing the gates behind him.
Yeah.
He was approved to go and research and shoot and film and everything. And Jeff was there. He had told us about this last summer months before it aired, and said, man, it's not going to be a good look. It's not going to be a good look for Ohio.
Look so evil.
Ohio History Connection.
I mean,
and they ended up blurting out the sign. He read the email in the episode.
it was great.
And it was blurred out. So it looks like Serpent Mound itself is the one
told him
banning.
to F off.
Right.
But it wasn't Serpent Mound.
Right.
But it's unfortunately
hiding behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
So from what I used to do with work, I did a lot of endangered species survey and stuff. The worst thing you can do is find an endangered species.
Really?
That's not the point. They don't want you to find them. So I worked for a third-party company that would be hired to do stuff, and we were not supposed to find stuff. But we were third-party. We didn't care. We were trying to find these things. So they would make our practice procedures, because they dictated what we could do, just like this, and they would make it so it was impossible to find the species we were looking for.
Yeah.
Like we would I can't name the survey or anything like that, but eels. We were looking for eels in a state. Their eels are supposedly about to come back. But if they're back, they have to remove every dam. We're talking billions of dollars. Billions.
So this is
With a
why
B.
people don't want to find them.
Yes. Because when they find them, they get protection. When they get protection,
Right.
the
You can't
animal
build
wins.
your highway. You can't
100%.
destroy the wetlands.
Extinct
You can't-
animals have no rights. Or extirpated. So extirpated means locally extinct. So extinct animals have no rights. But if they come back, then they have rights. So they made us so eels are nocturnal, bottom-dwelling fish.
Yeah.
They made us go out during the day, and they made us run nets for them. We weren't catching no eels. And we interviewed fishermen and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, we catch them all the time. But we weren't allowed to go. Like, if we did our normal survey, if we were, like, purposely looking for a species, we could have found
wild.
it. So they do it everywhere. It's all, for our end, it was more about the money.
Do they really want to find new information about these sites?
No.
That's what I'm.
No.
And dude,
they
tell
have to
you
do something
tell
about
the
it.
truth,
That's the whole thing. The monopoly
getting
board
to
has
a
been
point-
set. Nobody
I've
wants to
given
clear
them-
the pieces.
a lot of these organizations the benefit of the doubt of, okay, it can't be that bad.
Yeah, it is.
It really can't. Like, is there really some just like evil cabal that's maybe not? A lot of it is just it's the fact that, like, well, early on these organizations just weren't set up. But like, you've had 100 years. You've had over 100 years to have these processes in place, where you have archaeologists back in the day that would just dug up Serpent Mound, pushed all the dirt back, reformed it as best. It's a recreation of what you see.
Yeah.
A lot of earthworks are recreations
There's
because
almost
some
no
drunk
untouched one.
and most of them were like dudes out of college that are just down there having a frat party.
Let's
like
dig it up.
Putnam.
Let's see what's down there.
Like Putnam. I mean, all the Serpent Mound artifacts are in Harvard or in the Peabody Museum.
Oh,
And
so
that's where
they don't exist.
Our friend Jeff Wilson had to jump through so many hoops, and he went through the whole Serpent Mound artifact collection in the Peabody Museum, and that's where he found that skeleton, this postcard of a skeleton, and through digging through all these things. Actually, I don't know if he found that in the Peabody. Jeff's probably watching like, you're screwing up my story. But
he'll correct it.
Finding this this postcard, we have a video about it on our YouTube page. But essentially, like, there was an artifact that was in the photo, so he figured out how big the skeleton was
Based
by
off of some
measuring.
scale.
Yeah.
So
The
he had
artifact.
to find that artifact.
I gotta find this artifact
at the Peabody Museum or wherever he was digging. So then he could take that and scale it, and then figure out how large that skeleton was.
Did he find it?
And with the caption in the postcard, yes, he did. And the caption in the postcard said, "Giant skeleton found at Serpent Mound." So that's what kind of piqued his interest.
The crazy part was it didn't even have its lower legs.
Yeah. So it would have been
It
a
was
lot
that tall
bigger.
with just
But that was
Just
used
from the
in,
femur
Ross Hamilton's book. Ross Hamilton's kind of the OG of all giant research. Lives down in Mason. We've interviewed him, but he's the one that inspired a lot of like the Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman's. When Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman wrote their book, they went straight to Ross Hamilton, right here in Ohio. Like Ross is the OG, and Jeff and him have worked together and shared, because Jeff's more of like your straight up scientist. Reese used to work for NASA doing surveys.
Never a straight answer.
He was one of the first people that did LiDAR scanning and scanning at Serpent Mound for different government agencies in Ohio. So legit dude has a lot, and as legit, you meet him, you're just like, this isn't some crazy maniac dude that's trying to get in the news. He's not trying to create these salacious stories. What is the fucking problem? Why are you giving these people so much shit? He's legit.
He's like he ain't been shot.
I mean, he lives right next to it.
I mean, that he hasn't got depressed.
I mean, he just keeps, I don't know.
That happens to a lot of them.
But he lives right next to Serpent Mound, and that's what keeps him going, dude.
Yeah.
He's living by this beacon of energy.
Yeah.
You're soaking in this consciousness shifting. I mean, the first time I went there, it literally shifted my mindset, shifted my consciousness to.
Got a question for you.
Yes.
What do you think about the gravitational anomalies and the magnetic anomalies there?
It's because of the impact crater. We have a tour that we have a DVD and video coming out real soon.
It's
going to be for sale in the rock shop just outside in Locust Grove.
Fake Cops.
The House of Fake Cops. Our friend Tom and Terry have a little rock shop. And then he's got the largest trilobite collection that used to be on lease to the Smithsonian. When it was off lease, now it's sitting in the little rock shop, 7 miles from Serpent Mound. Go say hi to Tom. He'll tell you.
I have a whole bunch of trilobites.
Dude, Tom would be.
I've been collecting for a while.
When I say he's a trilobite expert,
I'm sure he is.
He's legit, bro.
Yeah.
And NASA came to him when they were trying to find the breccia from the Serpent Mound impact crater. NASA knew that from their scans that impact crater was there. So when they showed up in the area, the first person they ran into and talked to was Tom. Tom's like, I know exactly where the breccia is. Come follow me. He showed the NASA scientists where all that was and showed us. He took us on he gives tours. You guys should go and just take a tour with Tom. He'll literally you drive him around, but we shot the whole thing and then interviewed him, and then Stoner did a beautiful 20-minute piece with interviews being cut with the tour. It's called the Serpent Mound Impact Crater Tour. So it'll be available on our YouTube channel, but then also for sale as a DVD. We designed the cover. We'd never done a DVD before.
Make sure you let us know when that comes out. We'll promote it.
But yeah, it was a part of a live stream that we did with Ross Hamilton. We created the piece with Tom, and then I interviewed another person. It was a cool little ticketed event we did for the winter solstice in 2020. For Serpent Mound Star Knowledge is a group that Tom and Terry have been basically fostering for years, bringing all these different elders into the area to pray and do ceremony. They do a spring equinox ceremony. They do summer solstice stuff. But they've been in the area for so long, and Jeff lives right down the road from Tom and Terry.
Yeah.
So we kind of slowly started getting in with some of these groups, and now what's happening to them is just a shame, because they are real stewards of this place. And it's really sad to see.
Now that it's got popularity,
we've been called racist. We've been called cultural appropriates for doing informational, like interviewing Ross Hamilton, him talking about, apparently because we're white, or I have some Native American blood from my father. He was from Mexico originally, so more like New Mexico, Arizona, northern Mexico. But they see us, and then we got written up as being cultural appropriates for just talking about astronomical alignments and really cool information that Ross has been writing about forever, living just in Mason, Ohio, and Ross and Terry and Tom and Jeff and the Friends of the Serpent Mound and Delcy and all of them. When I say they've raised money, they've put in sweat, blood, and tears. They have volunteered And now this new ownership, the Ohio History Connection's already owned it, but it's the structure that's being put in place for World Heritage Site. So they're trying to get UNESCO World Heritage Site status for Newark earthworks. Basically, all the 5 Hopewell sites, which Ohio History Connection has their new exhibit. It's kind of whack, to be honest. Like, there's one really cool part if you go, but Serpent Mound's a part of that. And the thing with World Heritage status, like Chaco Canyon, in Ohio at least. In the United States, Chaco Canyon's kind of our big one that's already UN World Heritage Site. But then the Great Pyramids, Chichen Itza, the biggest sites in the world are on this list. And they're protected by the UN. So that with that comes gift shops, parking fees, money. Like, they have to expand these parking lots.
It's a big Ponzi scheme.
And there's parking lots sitting on top of a wood henge that's at Serpent Mound, like you see in Europe. There's a legit wood henge. They know it's there. And the parking lot's on top of it.
Right on top.
So they're going to come in.
They don't care about the history.
No, it's a cover-up.
They're not into preserving jack shit.
They're there to make money.
That's the thing that's been upsetting me is I've given these organizations the benefit of the doubt for far too long. And the more and more I'm talking to you guys now and some of the things you're saying and over the years getting to know Jeff, that it's just like, maybe in my back of my head that it's just, they're just not running it well. It's just people that aren't that sharp, that it's not an accident. But then again, you look at the board members, you look at the weird stuff that's going on.
Technology.
So is
being funded by huge organizations, like getting these endowments, like
how's your forehead feel?
It's spinning a little here.
So you're about to get a laser dot on it.
Yeah.
Is it because there's this evil organization, orchestrating all this, or
know.
Is it just money,
I'm
is
grabbing
it?
A beer.
Yeah.
Are they using money
maybe
to convince people, to run these sites in the fashion which they do because they're getting paid? They're gonna get money out of it,
right?
And they're using that to control people in a way, to control this narrative in a way,
right? So
is it money or is it?
Hey, tell them about the UN in the forest.
Oh well, so there's. Don't throw me off. So in the UN or in the forest, so there's national forests or national parks around the U.S.
I'm good, buddy.
In the middle, I'm all right. In the middle, you'll find these random white vans or random parking areas. But is it every national forest is owned by the UN? Every national park is owned by the UN
because they're funding it probably some way.
No, because it's not. It's not owned by anybody.
It's supposed to be ours.
No, but it's not.
Wrong.
It's not anymore.
You're wrong and you're dumb.
It's supposed to be.
So the UN owns the national parks?
That's the line we're fed. Is that
no? Yes.
It's public land. They call it public land.
It's public land. It's not public land.
Yeah, I can't go out into certain parts of these parks.
Oh,
it's not owned. It's a world thing. Yeah. So there's literally. Sorry.
So they're doing that same thing with historicals. Yeah, keep going.
You'll find the white vans in the middle of these national parks that are UN vehicles with weird license plates on them.
I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no buildings out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the weird thing. There'll be 100 cars somewhere. And there's no buildings.
What are they doing?
It's a parking lot out in the middle of no roads.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing out there or why. But it's just
it's
there.
It's almost like a bunch of people go missing in the national parks every year. We don't know why.
Well,
right.
yeah.
Right. It goes
because
back to that.
You walk into a UN base, and now you're tonight's soup.
Yeah. You want that list that's going to cost you $3 million. Politis tried to get it.
Yeah.
A list, and they said something like $4 million.
Good Lord.
To pay for it.
Yeah.
He was like, what do you mean? It's paper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is
what's on the paper.
Yeah, that's the dangerous part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy.
But it does all connect. It does. Like you said, it's academia. It's the EPA. I mean, the Ohio EPA has done.
Not allowed to talk about anything with the Ohio EPA.
Okay. Have you been scared a little bit?
No. I'm on NDAs.
Jobs.
Oh, copy that. And I won't get into it. I was on a documentary down in Waverly. Lady was making a documentary on the family that was killed execution style in their trailer.
Oh, Ross County?
And through that process of her doing that documentary, just went down there to just try to figure out what was going on with this murder.
Yeah.
And she went down 20 different rabbit holes where
there's
it
stories
was
there,
earthworks, lost civilization stuff that was pulling her this way. There was stuff with the defunct plutonium factory that's down there where everybody worked. And when it shut down, that county is the poorest county in Ohio. There's so much corruption. And what they're doing to essentially, they were trying to make that plutonium factory a nuclear dump to just fold it all in and then have other people bring in their nuclear waste. And so essentially, like, they had these geologists and survey people come out and it's like, no, totally safe. There's no cracks in the bedrock. It's not going to leach into the water.
Oh,
and meanwhile, there's people getting bone cancer everywhere down there.
That's what that movie's about, isn't it?
Brockovich.
Yeah.
Basically.
A similar situation.
Yes.
That was West Virginia, though, right?
They
Yes,
were
I
dumping
believe
these
it was.
chemicals from like a tanning
Yeah, I don't know if it was
factory
nuclear
into the
but
water.
No, but
and
yeah,
then-
same thing. It's
Yep.
getting into the watershed.
Flint.
We've been on a big kick about the water table and stuff like that.
Water's
It's the next
getting
war.
scary, dude.
It's the next war. You know about the Euphrates?
Yeah, you ever seen the documentary Blue Gold? It's really fascinating. Just how like Nestle is up in Michigan, sucking out all the
Bring it
tributaries going into the Great Lakes.
How about the Mississippi?
Yeah, that
You
too.
can walk across it in Louisiana. I was down there 5 years ago, and you couldn't. You can now walk across it because it's not. We've killed the water system, and that's we just got into talk about this. Me and my dad, a very educated man, but he's like, I don't understand what you mean that we don't have. What we did is we cut out a lot of the middlemen of the water cycle, the conventional water cycle we evolved with. We've tiled everything. Everything's asphalt. We straighten rivers. It's to get it as fast as you can to the ocean.
Right. And
Nothing's going
dammed
back.
up,
Yeah, nothing's going back into the water table.
like down into the aquifers.
Correct.
Yes.
And we've killed all the rainforest. We're destroying forests. So forests off gas water.
Yep.
So literally, we talked about this on the show. Rainforest in South America are the only reason some countries in South Africa get water.
Get rain.
Because the storms that are formed over top of the rainforest go across the ocean and give them
Absolutely.
their water. And they're not getting any more because that part of the rainforest is gone.
Right.
We've killed the water
That's the
cycle.
monsoons that form off of Africa that feed all those inland jungles in Africa.
But Euphrates is dry. It's officially dry. I don't know if you guys are biblical or I'm a Christian.
I'm interested
Euphrates
in the Bible.
is very important for Christians.
Absolutely. I mean,
Because it's when the end times, trials and tribulations start is when the
Sumeria.
Euphrates runs dry.
And we're there.
Yeah, it's dry. There ain't no water. And then
Glad we're starting a podcast.
Yeah,
yeah,
Good
we're gonna
time.
get to
Yeah.
we're gonna get to our like silver status on YouTube,
We
and
need
then
to
the world's
padlock
just
the
gonna
door for
end.
the zombie
We
apocalypse.
just monetized.
and then pockets around the Dead Sea are turning red, and that's also talked about in the Bible.
Really.
And we don't understand why. We think it's an allergy, but they can't ID the species.
Right, red algae.
Right now, this is happening again.
Right now, like 2 days ago is when this came out.
Hot off the press.
I mean, dude,
I called Jay screaming.
Göbekli Tepe, all those ancient sites in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
That shit's wild, man.
Yeah,
I mean, they're blowing away timetables of
for sure.
civilization.
for sure.
And who's to say that there wasn't something even more advanced before that?
Zahi Hawass.
Where would the
he
evidence
says.
be?
Zahi.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
gosh.
says.
Jay was screaming at me about him today.
I don't like that man.
No.
Nobody does. Nobody in this room does. I know
No.
that for a fact.
Not a fan.
No,
The
not a
fact
fan.
that he
Looking
wouldn't-
at Stoner, though, he's not in this room.
Zahi.
we can still hang out with Stoner, isn't that sweet? And he
Yeah,
can talk
I love
to
it.
us.
It's like his picture's big enough to where he feels like he's included.
Yeah, he is. Yep.
Yeah.
He's the fifth
Element.
We gotta bring Stone into the show. We gotta have a little. We gotta figure out the
Put a
Stone
window right there.
The Stone feed.
We've
cam
thought about that too.
into the.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be great? Cut
Yeah.
a hole in a window and put
So
a
you
camera
go
on
wave
him
at
that facing
Stone.
that way.
Oh, a long time ago, we just giants, the multi-rows of teeth. Polyodactyly is a more extra.
Yeah.
That's extra toes and fingers.
Fingers, yeah.
Yep. There's that too.
Blue
If
skin?
one knows.
A lot of giants are blue.
Like Avatar.
Not that quite that blue,
Yeah.
but blue, gray skin.
Blue hue. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. You know what those are all signs of, right?
Cyanosis.
Inbreeding, limited genetic pool. Those are all genetic markers for a population that's on collapse. And it's especially a hominid. It's crazy. Like literally, and we're talking about stories that we're getting from the 18 and 1700s about these blue giants that have extra fingers. Or even further back, the extra finger thing goes back
They're
a
like
long
mutating.
time.
They're like mutated.
It's because your gene pool is getting so short that you don't have the genetic capacity to form a normal body anymore.
Yeah.
So you ever heard of the Great Headache with the giants?
No.
Okay. I'm not a great giant person, as in the research and stuff like it's just not something that I've researched heavily.
Okay.
But the Great Headache was basically an interview with giants, like 300 or 400 years ago, one of the last living giants. And they talked about that a long time ago there was a lot of us, and now there's not.
Right.
Because of the Great Headache. And it was basically a disease.
A war.
It was a disease where they would get like, it seemed like a brain infection. And because it would start with a headache, an excruciating headache, and then a bleeding nose, and then death. And it seemed like a very small percentage of this giant population was immune.
Mm.
And they were the ones that left. And they kept breeding and breeding and breeding. But the genetic pool was so destroyed that, because you're also talking about a population that was not, or that was immune to the disease, so they're probably already kind of related.
Yeah.
And that's why we started getting modern time. Modern, I mean, the last 3,000 or 4,000 years. Blue giants, polydactyly. Anything with polydactyly is definitely inbred. That's like the number one thing with inbred. If you have extra or less fingers and toes,
There's something wrong with that
Yeah.
blueprint.
yeah. And then the extra rows of teeth is another big one with humans.
Yeah, they find it, and kids. And they get them
the blue
pulled
people
when
in
they're
West
little.
Virginia.
Yeah.
They were inbreds. They had been breeding in their own family for so long they turned blue, and they had polydactyly.
That's
Damn.
so strange.
And it's just a sign. So let's say me and Jay were talking about this the other day. I think giants probably lived, their lifespan was probably 200 to 300 years, if not longer.
Yeah, they spoke. Well, I mean, like the king's list of Sumeria and Egypt, like
They talk
goes
like
back
7
hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Where like one king was king for 1,000 years,
Right.
and there's like, oh well, that's myth, But here it is on these steles in Egypt and these giant temple complexes.
Yeah.
Where they have these lists, and then Sumeria has them as well, where Enki and Enlil
So do you know the
And
problem with
the
a long-lived
depictions of-
species?
of what?
With a long-lived species that's facing extinction, is they have really slow gestation periods. So they breed really slow. That's
Yeah.
why it took so long to get elephants back.
Right.
They have almost a 13-month gestation period.
Right.
So it takes them over a year just to produce one offspring,
Right.
plus raising it for 4 or 5 years before they'll get pregnant again. So if these giants are living extended lives, extended compared to us, they're going to breed really slow.
Right.
So if you do face a cataclysm, you can't bounce back like we can. We're like roaches
Right.
compared to
Right.
we can produce an offspring.
But I mean,
and
even
be
in the
out in a year.
1500s, DeSoto wrote about going up the Mississippi and through the tributaries in like the South and Midwest and running into tribes of regular-sized people and tribes of giant people. And they were living hand in hand and next to each other. We covered the story about Magellan off
that
the
was
coast
great.
of Patagonia,
That was great.
where Magellan's crew wrote and actually sketched.
They tried to bring one back.
They tried
Yeah.
it. They
Come on the
captured
boat.
it.
Yeah.
And they knocked it out and got it on board, and the thing died supposedly in captivity.
I mean, you
And
hit it in the head hard
there's-
enough, it probably ain't going to be the
yeah,
best shape.
Well, it wasn't giants. It's not going to have sea legs
Right.
like that. That if it's never been on a boat, and if you hit it hard enough on the
I was
head,
gonna say,
it
how'd they
gets
knock
sick.
it out?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or it
but,
was a
I mean-
nutritional or dietary thing, and
Yeah.
it couldn't survive the journey.
But well
or-
documented sketches.
A lot of
drawn.
big animals
Yeah.
don't do good in captivity.
Yeah.
Especially a smart one.
100%.
They just starve themselves. They won't
Yeah,
eat.
I mean, they're people.
Trilocines were the Tasmanian tigers.
Right.
We had a bunch of them in zoos. We only ever had like a handful
Right.
that would actually eat
The
food.
last one was in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The most of them starve themselves to death in captivity because they
Makes
give
sense.
them food, they give them live food, dead food. It didn't matter. They just sit there and pace.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't right. That's all their
I'm
their
not in
brains
my
could-
natural
yeah.
habitat.
And I think those are back. There's people that have been seeing
did a
trilocines.
2-hour episode on it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
oh, in
Wow.
Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what the
Yeah,
big
they've
fight
been
with trilocines right now?
What's that?
Is the genetic labs that's bringing woolly mammoths back. Woolly mammoths are, officially, woolly mammoths have not been cloned yet. I think
Officially.
I think they have been.
Yeah.
But this company's saying we have the genome, we can do it. We have Asian elephants, are the closest living relative of the woolly mammoth. So we have a surrogate. So we can do it. So they're working on doing it. There's some evidence to suggest that it may help with some of the, Jay doesn't like the word, but climate change stuff in our more northern climates. Basically, it creates more food in the winter. So what mastodons and mammoths did is, well, mammoths specifically, would take their giant tusk, and they're basically snowplows.
Right.
They'd make food available
They're
all
rooting
winter
up
long.
all the mushrooms.
So many species went extinct right after mammoths
Yeah.
because they depended on mammoths.
Sure,
clear the
absolutely.
path.
Yeah,
The woolly
for the-
rhinoceros.
for months of the year.
Yeah.
The ground sloths.
So, yeah, once
that
they
were
went extinct,
giant
they were like,
ground
yep.
sloths, the
They're
woolly
gone
rhinos.
because they can't eat in the winter now. They don't have the system. So this company's bringing them back, and they think there's some evidence. I don't. I want them back, but it's just me. I like seeing big animals.
You really think they're going to put woolly mammoths back somewhere?
They're already there.
Really?
I think so. 90% Siberia we can't go to
That is true. Yeah.
because it's Siberia, not because nobody's telling you can't.
So deep.
You can't get there because you'll die.
Right.
But so this company, anyways, came to Australia, and they built a $5 million genetics lab for cloning trilocines. They have DNA. They have a couple marsupials that are kind of close related. They're like, okay, we have like 3 or 4 options for a surrogate. So we think we can do this. And the thing is, they went extinct because of human hunting them to
Predation, yeah.
extinction relatively recently. So the ecosystem that they were from is still present. They still have a role. The role hasn't been completely eaten up by invasives yet. So there's still a chance that if we bring them back, they'll do okay.
Right.
And they can get reestablished and they'll do great. The problem is this is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But Australians are fighting back, not because of the genetics lab cloning animals, because they said they're still there. So why are you spending and wasting all this money? Instead, protect the ones we got.
They're there.
Yeah.
They're
Protect
there.
the ones that are still living.
Right.
Don't make new ones.
Yeah.
Do something else. So
Yeah.
this lab is like, okay, we have 5 more years to build and finish this project. So if you can find, and I think we did the reward is like $1 million or something. It's if you can find us a live one before we're done with this 5-year project, we'll use the lab to clone some other endangered species.
Wow.
So there's this whole timetable thing now that's going on with the trilocene. We're like,
That's wild.
but I've seen videos of them. I know they're real. Like as in still around.
Sure.
right.
Sure.
I mean, we had the
The
wildlife
famous
biologist.
black and white video that you see.
Where it's in the zoo
it's
or
in
something.
like 19.
Well, I
whatever,
seen
30.
color ones from 2018
Yeah.
of a mom with her pups.
Really?
Yeah, and it's striped rump, so they have a very stiff tail.
Yeah.
So people are like, no, it's a dingo. Dingo are the related dogs. They have a very fluctuating tail.
Mm-hmm.
Trilocines have a very rigid, thick, stiff tail.
Yeah.
It's all almost fused bone. So it looks like they're wagging a mop handle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing there. Like you can't bend.
Right.
Like if you took that, it would be very painful if you tried to bend that tail. So there's plenty of video evidence, but that doesn't mean anything for what people care about.
Right.
But to me,
It's
they're
like
they're
Bigfoot.
still around. Yeah. But yeah, and then Megalania is another Australian one. Giving our Australian listeners a shout out because we just kind of blew up over there.
Oh, nice.
We've gotten a whole bunch of emails and reviews from Australia over
Very
the last
cool.
2 weeks.
Very cool.
But Megalania still are being seen. Do you know
What is that?
the big Komodo dragon?
Wait, what? Bigger
So-
than a Komodo?
Yeah, Komodos get 20 foot. This guy got 50.
Damn.
Big Komodo dragon.
You know why the Aborigines didn't have fires at night?
Because it would bring the Komodos.
Yeah, because they bring the Megalania.
The Megalania around.
They'd come in and eat the whole village,
Yeah.
and then they'd take the fire and scrape it out and lay in the embers.
Stay warm.
So that's why the
That's a
Aboriginals
real-life
sit there.
dragon.
They just sit there in the dark because it's like, yeah, if we light this fire, every monster for 10 miles is coming here.
This is great. I've never heard any of this stuff, but that's
So
fantastic.
we still have modern sightings
Yeah.
of Megalania today. So do you know where the largest unexplored rainforest by volume on the planet is?
in Australia.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a hint, but yeah,
It is?
there's a massive rainforest that we can't go into because everything will kill you. Every
Yeah.
bug is venomous.
It's like on the southwest part of
Yeah.
Australia, right?
Yeah, it's monstrous.
Where they get more
The-
rain.
Yeah, they're just barely doing. So Yowie is the Australian Bigfoot-like
Yep.
creature.
Yep.
There's a company or a group that's doing a little bit of research down there, but they can only go to this one valley because they need to be able to get out in time if something stings them.
Right.
So they have to time it. Like, okay, if I get stung right here, it's going to take me 45 minutes to get back to the camp. It's going to take me 2 hours to get to the main road, and it's going to take me 2 hours to get to the hospital. So if I get stung by this insect, I can make it, but if I get bit by this spider, I can't.
I did not know Australia had this big of a rainforest.
Australia's a massive continent.
It's huge, subcontinent. Yeah,
It's a
but it was like Indonesia. All that was one giant.
yes. And during the
continent.
last
It's
ice
all
age.
on a big shelf.
Yeah, that's why the Great Barrier Reef
Fiji
exists.
was part of
we
it.
have these giant shallow water shelves because they were above land.
Yeah.
Sometime in the recent past, you can argue time scale and everything like that. We do know the Great Barrier Reef's at least 40,000 years old, so it's been underwater.
Yeah.
For a
Or
while.
at least most of it's been underwater for at least that long.
Yeah.
But there's bleaching events on top that look like, or historic bleaching events look like it was like chunks of it have been raised and lowered, like above waterline and below waterline. There's coral in the Great Barrier Reef that goes almost right up to the surface. It's an incredible place on the planet.
Yeah,
so
I
wild.
would love to.
I'm gonna
go,
have to look
but
into
yeah,
this
everything
rainforest.
kills you. In
Not even being a
Australia.
cryptid, but just not knowing.
There
that
was
there's a
one.
giant
There was
rainforest.
one. Do you remember Lost Tapes?
No.
Oh gosh,
Oh yeah,
great show from. I was young.
Yeah,
I'm 27, so I'm a little.
Lost tapes.
We have a little bit difference in age,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to think how old you guys would have been. I was probably 10 to 12
probably
when
in
it
our
was
20s.
when it was out.
Yeah.
But it was basically like a found footage type thing with certain cryptids from around the world, but based off of real events. A girl got eaten by a megalania, or at least that's kind of the story, in Australia. They found some of her video cameras, and it looked like something was chasing her, like following her. So Komodo dragons, I don't know if you know what they do. They have venom. This has
Yep.
been an argued
There's
fact
saliva.
for a long time.
Yeah.
They actually leak it through their gums.
Okay.
So they used to think the saliva was just
Was
so bacterial
toxic. Yeah,
field
yeah.
that
But
would
it's
kill
actually
animals.
venom.
They actually have venom glands in their throat.
I didn't
So-
know that. I
it's-
thought it was all those.
That's all
bacteria,
really
too.
new.
Yeah, really new, because their venom glands were so small and so much further back than any other animal. We weren't looking for them. So normally they're in the face
Yeah,
or
yeah.
in the back of the head.
Yeah.
They have them really way down lower,
Okay.
and they just kind of leak them. So what they do is they run up and they bite, and then they back off.
And they just follow you.
Yep, they're like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
I don't got to do nothing. I'm
Yeah.
going to fight you. I ain't going to rip you up.
Yeah, they just track you until you go down. They're like
So
a.
this girl got followed by something for days. It wasn't ever lunging at her. It wasn't ever, but it was massive. But Aborigines have stories of like these living log monsters is what they kind of refer to them as, which are these giant lizards. They look like logs. There was a 2000 account of a Boy Scouting group going near this rainforest. A smaller, like, basically imagine the rainforest as a national park, so a state park that's kind of nestled up to it, but it's got roads and stuff in it.
Okay.
So it's not as dangerous as going into the rainforest.
Gets you on the edge of it.
Yeah, but you can still go out with the Boy Scouts and stuff and see stuff. But something happens, civilization's right there,
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
and they sat on a log that stood up, and it was a megalania. And Komodo dragons aren't monsters. They eat. They are vicious predators. But when they're full or they're not hungry, they just walk off. They're not monsters.
Right.
So this thing just kind of like, oh, all right, these guys woke me up. I'm leaving.
Yeah, and took off.
And it was like a 25-foot lizard.
I mean, I remember years and years ago, I would hear stories out of Africa, Ogopogo, right?
Yeah.
Ogopogo's
Lake
Canada.
Not is it Ogopogo? What's the lake? In
Oyante
Africa?
Tambo is the Congolese
Is that what it is?
Okele and Bembe.
Okele and Bembe.
Yeah, Olente
sorry.
Tambo, South America, I think.
I don't know if they
Yeah.
thought it was a
Yes.
brontosaurus.
That's an ancient
or...
site in
Right,
South
yeah.
America. Sorry.
So we've done a lot
Oh.
of research on Okele and Bembe. Actually,
Yeah.
we talked to Lyle Blackburn about it.
Yeah.
Oh, Lyle, we caught his presentation.
Yeah, we love Lyle. He's given us shout outs on a couple of his stage shows and stuff like that, or stage presentations.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we kind of caught him, talked to him about it one day.
Yeah.
It's probably not a sauropod. That sauropod would be that long-necked dinosaur family group.
Right.
Not because I don't think, anyways, not that they survived mass extinction, didn't survive mass extinction, that's a different argument. Okele and Bembe never had a tail until in the 1960s when all these white people from America were like, okay, they're seeing a dinosaur. They took these picture books. They're like, okay, is this what you're seeing? And these guys were kind of like, well, kind of. And then they'd give them stuff. So like, oh, yeah, no, that's what we're seeing. They created this whole trade system for information. They created a false trade system. They want to know, now all these people in the Congo know the Americans want to see a dinosaur. So they draw the dinosaur with the big long tail. Okele and Bembe historically never had a tail.
Okay.
It was still big, four-legged animal, long neck, hated hippos. That's the famous thing. Is that like when you're in the Congo and you stop seeing hippos, you're probably not in a good area because Okele and Bembe hates you too. Okele and Bembe hates everything. So there was a creature that is from this part of Africa that was big. tied with the biggest land mammal to ever exist. It had a long neck and a very bad attitude,
And you think it was a mammal?
and it was famous for eating hippos.
What was it called?
The Paraceratherium. A mouthful. It's a rhino relative with a long neck, big tusks. So Mokele-mbembe has tusk teeth. So Paraceratherium has these tusk teeth. And the cool thing about Paraceratherium is that they had really dense
Is
bones.
this like a Pleistocene animal?
Yeah.
That they thought after.
Yeah, but they coexisted with hippos too.
Okay.
Hippos just survived.
Right.
So who's to say this thing didn't? These things were big. They hated hippos, and they had very dense bones. So there's a couple reasons animals have very dense bones, is for weight distribution and being negatively buoyant. Hippos cannot swim.
Right, they walk.
Yeah. So hippos have very dense bones
Yep.
because they got a lot of fat on them, so they need to sink. Paraceratherium had very, very dense bones. Hated hippos, lived a long time, and they lived very solitary lives. So I really think that the Paraceratherium is what Mokele-mbembe is.
Yeah.
And these things are monstrous. These are not small animals. These could pick up a hippo and throw it.
Damn.
So you're talking about 2 to 3 times the size of an African elephant.
Dude, the Congo's got to have so much weird shit. I mean,
You know,
you can't penetrate
Right.
that dense.
Well,
of
it's not even
jungle.
that. You know why we don't research it anymore?
I mean, you can just die of malaria.
The
like
guerrilla
that.
warfare.
Yeah, well, yeah,
There's
of
that
course.
too.
Because
Yeah.
Lyle was going to go do it, and it was just
Yeah.
too much money.
Absolutely.
Because you had to pay
You
every
gotta pay
checkpoint.
all the warlords off.
And they will kill you.
What's
Right.
Mokele-mbembe translate into?
The one that stops the river's flow.
So there you go. There's a good example. And then how many toes did the tracks normally
Thank
have?
you. I forgot.
You're missing some. Yeah.
Jay's great for this. So Mokele-mbembe only ever has 3 toes. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
Sauropods always had 4 or 5. So sauropods still had 5 toes, but sometimes it was raised more on the foot, so you wouldn't see it in a track.
Kind of like a dog.
Yeah. So that dew claw, that'd be a
Yep.
sauropod's 5th digit. So sometimes they had 5 toes, sometimes they had 4 in the fossil record. Mokele-mbembe only ever has 3. That doesn't change
In the tracks.
in
yeah.
the tracks. And we have really good tracks in Mokele-mbembe with dermal ridges and everything. Like, it's a foot. Something real made this.
Like photos of it or casts?
Casts. There's casts that this
Okay.
exist. So Mokele-mbembe only has 3. Paraceratherium has 3. It's a cloven hoofed mammal. So the toes are actually fused. So there's odd-toed mammals and there's even-toed mammals. Paraceratherium was an odd-toed mammal with 3 toes. Even though the bones in the foot still have 5 digits, you see 3 toenails or 3 toes. So Paraceratherium fits that again. Fits the size, fits the attitude,
Yeah.
the area, negatively buoyant bones, and a really bad attitude. And that's the big thing with Mokele-mbembe is like they're like, you don't go near it
Yeah.
because
It will stomp you to death.
it will eat you or kill you. It hates hippos. We've seen it throw a hippo. You don't go near them because it will kill you.
Yeah.
It feels like there's cryptids and monsters and ancient relic animals living everywhere.
But the stories go
more we
back
talk about it.
forever.
I know.
The indigenous stories of these things are just unbelievable. Like every ancient cultures has stories about biblical type floods, weird creatures, UFOs. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to you can't throw a stone
It's
without
even like going to Angkor Wat when we went to Cambodia and they have a carving relief of a
of
stegosaurus.
the
on it.
Stegosaurus.
Wow.
So I was like,
Yeah,
hey,
that's
make sure
true.
you go
You
see
see it
the
on the wall and you're like,
Stegosaurus.
You guys went there?
Yeah.
Bub did.
You see it and you're
That's
just like,
awesome.
that's not real. And then you're
Yeah.
like, that is exactly what it is.
there.
I
It's a
remember telling you
stegosaurus.
about that before.
I've seen that
100%.
carving.
Yeah.
Not in person, but
Yep. 100%. It just, our guide walked us up to it and we all just kind of sat there for a minute like,
India's full of a lot of weird stuff.
We're hoping to go to India with our buddy VJ. He's exploring all these ancient temples out there. Shoots me like 100 photos, and I'm just like, God, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
We
Look at the
gotta
ceilings.
go.
Look
Yeah.
at the ceilings and the shadows.
Well, India,
really?
India's fascinating because the Indo-European languages, like they're coming from Europe
Yeah.
down into India. Those ancient cultures were mixing with indigenous, Indian from the Indian continent, and they're bringing the Vedic texts and the Sanskrit text go back so far. Hinduism, there's cultures there that predate Hinduism by far. And it is one of the most advanced places in the stories of flying machines and the
Vimanas.
Vimana.
yeah.
Oh, they're jellyfish.
And, I've read the Bhagavad Gita and that's interesting. But
I'm just picking on you.
you know,
Like I say, I really think they're only 5% of
he's
UFO
got me believing in
sightings.
fucking everything, bro. It's like Justin's right about it all.
Just
How many times happened to you?
jellyfish.
Huh?
How many times has it happened to you?
A few times.
Like
That's
2?
A few times.
And I just look at you. I'm like, that's stupid.
Exactly.
Whatever. Garbage. Giant trees is the worst episode we ever did for Patreon.
Yeah, he just doesn't believe in anything
No,
if it
I
doesn't
hate
fall
the
into
people
a biological.
associated with it.
Yeah.
What's this topic?
I don't want to talk.
Is it like flat Earth, dumb?
No, we
Yes.
just. Oh, jeez.
What is it,
Oh,
Jay?
how about
Jay, please.
Tartaria? Is it Tartaria, dumb?
No, we
See-
can't pick on Tartaria because we have a special guest coming on our show
Oh,
about Tartaria.
Hey, there's.
I'm out when it comes to Tartaria. Sorry, I
I'm
think
not
it's
out
another. I think it's another
Corey Good?
CIA
Deep.
Black
Oh,
Ops
I don't believe it.
misinformation,
But
flat Earth type situation,
Misleading.
where it's like there's already so many great ancient civilization and weird technology stories. Like all of a sudden, Tartaria just like pops up, and now everybody's doing a podcast on it. It's like, man,
it's
I don't
new.
buy it, dude. I don't
it's
buy
the
it.
shiny thing.
The mud flood is basically flat Earth of ancient civilizations. It's like that's the flat Earth of the ancient civilization.
You got to be
world.
careful. Jay believes in flat Earth.
I mean,
No, see, he just doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He thinks I believe in flat Earth. I don't. I don't believe
I'm
we're
not looking at him.
flat plane. He's misrepresenting me.
Tell them what you-
I believe you
That
don't
was so
believe.
funny.
He doesn't believe in flat Earth.
Jay,
I just love
he's
just doing
misrepresenting
I
it.
believe
me.
I believe the Earth isn't what we're told it is. I'll believe
Now,
that.
I think
In what
I can
sense?
agree
Hey,
with that.
you
so
know,
I don't believe.
Hollow Earth. Hollow Earth.
Potentially, yeah.
Hollow Earth.
when
I
we're-
believe there's things below us and things above us. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Journey
realms
to the
of
center
living.
of the
When
Earth.
we're
But-
drunk, he'll just look at me and say flat Earth's real and stuff like that.
I
and
say
I'll
I
just
don't.
be like,
I don't believe in
put my
flat.
head through the wall.
I don't believe in flat Earth and the ice wall, and there's that
God,
containing
that
us.
stupid
in.
giant
But
trees.
what I-
Space isn't real. Birds aren't
See,
real. Is
they're-
the funniest internet meme ever.
He says it
Birds
to
aren't
me.
real. It's
I
great.
believe that space may not be real. I think that's a possibility. I think it could be a misrepresentation.
I'll take you to Chaco Canyon at 2 a.m.
Well, it's not that space isn't real. It's
At
just
7,000
it's just
See,
that
this is what
no,
we talk about.
it's that space is being misrepresented to be
Yes.
like this
And
vast
I don't-
emptiness of whatever planets out in billions of light years away or whatever other galaxies just like ours teeming with life or teeming with whatever planets and all that.
Yeah.
What if all that's just misrepresentation? And
misinformation.
we do see what's up there. We can see it. You can look up and see it.
Right.
So I'm not disputing that.
A lot of it's
It's just-
theoretical too.
Yeah, it's just
because
what
we don't
actually
have
is that.
instruments to
Go out
measure
there.
it.
I've
and
never went
that's-
up there and touched it or felt
Right.
it
I
or
love
seen
picking
it,
on Jay.
smelled it.
Yeah.
But I believe
Really? I never noticed.
it could be something different than what they're telling us. Or this.
Yeah.
We grew up in school. Everything. If you look what we've been taught in
Yeah.
school, it's
The
a
You know who set up the
misrepresentation.
school
Garbage.
system?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in school that
Ford,
you
wasn't it?
come
No,
to
which
find out
businessman was it?
isn't real.
Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Rockefeller. Thank
There you
you.
go.
Right
He
there.
set up the education system.
I
So like
know
space.
it's one of the evil ones. I just
when-
can't think of what.
When you're sitting in class and they're teaching you about space, this is what it is. Who's to say, like, okay, maybe it's, or just to stop and pause, maybe that is a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
Because when you look out into the vastness of space, we're this tiny little speck of, they say life, we're the only life out there, or else life would have visited us by
That's
now. If it was
bullshit.
so like infinite, then it's infinitely teeming with life. Then if we
Of
can't be the
course it
only thing,
is.
and then
Yeah.
something would have visited us,
Tardigrades.
They know
But
the Goldilocks
fungus.
zones.
But however, we haven't had this advanced civilization, visit us supposedly.
Would you
But-
care about ants?
But, shh. But like,
Oh, I'm with Jay on this, to be honest.
When-
Like, we do care about ants. There's lots
Yeah.
of entomologists that are obsessed with
for sure,
like,
it's part of an
looking at studies.
ecosystem. We're all one. Huh?
We yelled at him.
Yeah,
I
we
called
yelled
him
at
a
him.
commie the other day. Not really. He's my neighbor. Kurt's an amazing man, but I was yelling at my dog and I called him a commie. And Kurt looked up, thought I was screaming
You
commie at
called
him.
your dog a commie.
He about knocked me over. So
There's a lot of irony in that.
researching JFK stuff, and it was like, so I heard
Oh
the word
yeah, you'll get
commie
into
like
commie
600
stuff
times.
real
Oh,
quick with
Jesus.
that.
But like the Earth I just think it might be a realm of existence that life lives in. It's a special place because it is the only place where there actually is experience, where we're able to experience what we experience in this dimension, I guess.
I think this
So-
dimension is kind of like a school. Like
Yeah.
our existence on Earth, in a way, is like some sort of cosmic school where we're here to
experience.
do what we're supposed to do, experience love, hate, anger, like that's
emotion,
all
yeah.
part of the bag, but also like bring yourself up and raise yourself up to a spiritual level where you're actually trying to go through a process of leveling yourself up. And it's just, I mean, think about it, like every time you walk out the door, you know, if you're open-minded, you can learn something, teach yourself something.
Absolutely.
And you know, the spiritual nature of everything is always been a big fascination of mine. It's like, are we in this some kind of simulation? You know, we have these meat suits that we walk around in. What's really going on, you know, is there this spirit that moves on into these other dimensions after we're down in the dirt and we're gone? Do we continue on? Do we keep that cycle of life going where it's just an energy disposition where just our energy moves on? And maybe it's into a whole nother existence. Maybe it's a whole nother realm, like you're saying with Earth. But, you know, we're going to live the next life that we need to live to learn what we didn't learn maybe in the previous life, potentially. You know, my wife's from, her father's from India. They're Hindu. So, you know, the concept of reincarnation has been really interesting because, you know, there's many times where it's like, I'm like, why am I so fascinated with Egypt? Why am I so fascinated with the Yucatan and ancient Mexico and Peru and all these places?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been interested in really just trying to understand why I'm into it. You just, maybe we lived some type of life in the far distant past.
You ever heard the baby God theory?
Let's hear it.
It's not one. I just kind of basically they were all the same being, pieces of the same being.
Sure, it's like a
having to
fractal. We're fractal nature of a
experiencing
larger
everything
whole. Yes,
of life.
absolutely.
Rich, poor, sorrow, happiness, love. And at the end of it, we're literally chunks of a baby God. And
Of
this,
the
like
Godhead,
you're saying,
the Godhead.
This is school.
The Godhead.
So when
is
you
like
start
the
creating
larger
stuff
whole.
later, you know how everything feels.
Right.
So you're not vicious or or not
That's interesting.
non-caring.
Yeah.
And it's not one I subscribe to, but it's definitely an interesting theory.
Yeah. And all I know is that growing up Catholic, most of that shit didn't make sense to me. And when I started learning about and really having my own mystical, spiritual experiences through, you know, different avenues and through really trying to like immerse myself into, you know, meeting different people were and going through the ringer essentially. And trying to, on my own path, trying to discover who I was. I was adopted, actually, when I was 6 weeks old. So I grew up in, you know, Chickasaw, Ohio.
Yeah.
But my father and biological mother, an experience in my 20s kind of woke me up because I never really cared. I always knew that I was adopted, but just, you know, these guys, my buddies, never made it a big deal. Every now and then, growing up, somebody would make it into. I just never cared. My mom and dad were my mom and dad.
Yeah, that's
Right.
your
They
parents, 'cause
raised me.
you.
These are my friends. This is my little world.
Yep.
But as you get older, and especially, you know, when I was in my 20s, I'm like, I'm having all these kind of issues in my life because I didn't know who I was. I knew where I came from, but I didn't know my roots. I didn't know my history. So, you know, fast forward to when I had my first daughter, I started coming through really thick through experiences that I was having, you know, out in the woods and things that were like coming through. I couldn't push it away anymore.
Right.
And so because of her, it's like, I need to find out who I am to essentially like get past all these blockages to essentially get me to the point where, you know, I could, with good friends and help, create something like this.
Yeah.
If I hadn't gone down that path, Strange Road would never exist. So putting myself into situations to try to like just smack myself out of this matrix and try to understand a deeper level And, you know, through that process, I took a DNA test, discovered that basically the entire UN conference is inside my body, like from all over, just because that region of Mexico had been taken over by so many, you know, Jewish, there's Congolese, there's West African down there. The silver mines were in Zacatecas, where my father was adopted from. He was adopted too.
Wow.
See, I found all this stuff out through documents, and I went on Ancestry and just started digging deep. Within a week, I'd found my biological mother, not her contact info, but ended up getting a hold of her aunt, that all of her aunt's brothers had all passed. But through my research, I was like, this person may still be alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this key, and I know this connects to her. And then I just got a whitepages.com, found her phone number, and gave her a call. 2-3 days later, she calls me. Yeah, hi, how you doing? I'm having a barbecue at my house, cooking food for a bunch of friends. And I got kebabs on the grill, and all of a sudden it just starts pouring. And I run outside to take those kebabs off the grill, and the phone rings, and it's this lady saying, yeah, hi, you gave me a call, and you know, you say you were given up for adoption in 1982. Well, I'm here to tell you that you are that boy, and your mother's alive, and they've all wanted to know where you were for your whole life.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And you have 2 brothers and two half sisters and 2 half brothers, which I kind of knew that. I didn't know they were boy and girl or how old they were.
You just knew they were
But
there.
I had found a birth certificate, my living birth certificate. So I have a birth certificate that says Michael Francis Leisner, parents Jean and Frank. But then I also have a living birth certificate, which is what I got unlocked when my daughter was really little. They released all those adoption records on the state level. It's right here in Columbus. Drove down there, submitted a form, and boom, I had this live birth certificate. I had Mary's, my birth mother's first and last name. Couldn't find her for years. I kind of just gave up until my wife got me Ancestry. I took the DNA test. And so, like, you know, the American Southwest DNA, the Hopi, you know, all the way through Mexico. It's like I'm English, but it's pre-Anglo-Saxon English, which is like basically the people that built Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm.
So it has these genetic I'm like, Jesus. No wonder.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with all this stuff.
It's in your DNA.
Maltese.
in your
Like,
makeup,
I'm
yeah.
obsessed with the
Yeah.
island of Malta and the
Malta's
giant
awesome.
stories there, and the crazy cyclopic structures and stuff there. Like Malta's in there. Italy, Spain, Sardinia is the
where sardines are
actual
from?
specific is Sardinian, but it's like, you know, 2%. But it's like, you know, my mother was like pretty much all Welsh and English, and, you know, Irish or whatever. But all the weird DNA comes from my father, who grew up in Mexico, in Zacatecas, where these silver mines were.
Yeah.
And then you dig into like the culture there, and there was a huge uprising against the Spanish. He's kind of like the Tecumseh of Mexico. He's like a folk hero down there. I want to get a tattoo of this guy, like on the back of my calf. But Mezcalta was his name, and but like literally discovering all this stuff. When I just grew up in this little German Catholic area,
Right.
always felt a little different, but had good friends like these guys that you know, we were just out of place weirdos. All of us banded together. We were kind of all
Yeah, we
you
did
know,
not fit in very well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We did
it's
and we
very
did and we didn't.
conservative. Obviously, but I think it's, you know, it's important. Like you guys are young guys. You're going on your spiritual journey right now. The key, everybody has their own path to figure out where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to get to, and it's all about feeling good about yourself, accomplishing something, and you guys are doing that. And part of this Cryptids to the Core, you guys have created something that, like, down the line, you're not even going to realize how important this really is until like 10 years down the road. And however far you want to take it, you'll take it. But yeah, I think that's like doing all this research and being obsessed with shit is cool. Like you, sir, are obsessed.
I have problems.
And it's cool as
Yes.
hell, though. Like to sit here and chat with you and go down these rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And, I used to be like that more when I was in my 20s. I got kids now. It's hard for me to, like, really sit down and unless it's something, like, really going to bring me in and blow me away. But a lot of the stuff that we talk about, I was into a long, long time ago. So it's hard to like go back to when I was in those obsessive research states and digging into all this ridiculous
Staying up all
shit.
night watching YouTube
Oh,
videos,
dude,
reading articles. And,
reading documents is really what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was going in the Unclassified and Freedom of Information Act, finding the journalists that were pulling all of this stuff out and like reading white papers. And on all kinds of shit about UFOs, the banking industry, who's really running shit.
Yeah.
Figuring out how money works, all of those things, and then just slowly meeting people like we were talking about Jim Bowser. And we've had people that kind of pop in our lives where you feel like shit's being guided a little bit, but these synchronicities that happen, that's when you know you're on the right path. When you have these weird things that pop up, when you're like, damn, I just met this person and it led me to this and it led me to this. That's how you know. If you're not on the right path, you're not having all these amazing things. Like, him and I went to Sedona and got smudged on top of in a canyon on top of a vortex in 2010. Like that was another moment where just like all my chakras, whatever you want to call it, aligned. And it just like, and it took me a long time, like another 10 years to get to the point where we're doing this. But the message was pretty damn clear. This is what we're supposed to be doing back then in 2010. I mean, the Jeep tour guide that did all this for us was freaked out. Like genuinely, Kevin was freaked out. He said, guys, this never happens.
everything that kept happening, it was great.
Because we did these spirit wheel cards.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a tarot card, but it's Native American spirit wheel. Spirit wheels are out in southwest United States where they're actually these big geometric structures, and people will sit in the center. They'll sit in the spokes of these wheels, and so it's through like a meditation. But it's this, and I don't fully understand the spirit wheel completely. But these cards are essentially like that type of astronomical geometric, what your birthday is, what our connection is, and you put your intentions right into the cards.
Yeah.
And we're up on this Boynton Canyon, that was a vortex basically that's not on the vortex maps.
Gotcha.
When you go to Sedona, you can get the airport vortex, you can go to this, and it's all like tourist attractions.
Yeah.
This dude brought us in a Jeep that was like super remote.
We were in the middle of nowhere.
And this is his like little, he's like, man, you guys are into this. You just want to keep going? Because we booked like a 2-hour tour.
Heck
and he's
yeah.
like, I don't normally do this, but would you guys want to go to this kind of secluded area?
He was like, oh, these guys are down for it. I get to do what I want on the tour.
And I'll break out the spirit wheel cards. We're like, what are spirit wheel? He goes, oh,
he had a flute out. He was
playing flute. He
great.
smudged us for the first time up there.
I think there was mention of Avatar at one point because
we
things
talked
were getting
about
so strange. He was just like, he's like, turns around while he's driving the Jeep. He's like, you guys ever see Avatar? And we're like, yes, Kevin. Yes, we have.
But
I
Kevin
think we were a
Torres-
nice change of pace.
Kevin Torres, I've been trying to find this guy
for a while.
for years. I cannot.
We were not the typical
find
tourist that when he said,
He's
"Oh,
probably
that's
not real.
when he
Did a
said,
whole-
"Oh, that's Bart
Dude,
Simpson rock,"
He talked to us
and he'd have
about.
people go, "How did you do that?" And he's like, "No, like nobody carved it. Those rocks they just look like
like
shapes."
They look like
Yeah.
Bart and
But
Lisa.
people are like, "Oh, who's the artist?" He's like, God or whoever.
Yeah.
Like,
But we get up there and like most of the time it's like tourists from LA. and,
Right.
Like the
Right.
people that he's got to give these Jeep tours. So me and him are
There's
just
a
stoked.
vortex.
Yeah.
We're just stoked, bro. We're out there like, dude, he taught us how to connect to the energy.
we were
Take your
talking about
fingertips
Ashtar.
over top of the
Have you ever heard of Ashtar? The like alien warden of the Southwest
Yeah, he lives
that
in
apparently roams the canyons of Sedona,
the Greys are all in the canyons in these
and he keeps them in
inner chambers. The
keeps
Greys.
them in Ashtar.
Ashtar is the sheriff essentially
Okay.
of all
Of the
the
Greys.
Greys. That he goes and you talk
Yeah,
to
They needs to keep him in there.
and he said you talk to the old timers, the people that are 80s, 90s, and they'll tell you all of the weird shit that flies out of those canyons, the weird sightings. They know about the aliens inside the canyons, but basically Ashtar is like the one that keeps all the troublemakers in check. Civil. And you can go back to Ishtar in Sumeria. You know, there's tons of writings in ancient civilizations about different variations of but Ishtar is a big one. So it's weird. Like, is he, this what they call ascended masters, right? Like Saint Germain. So if you go to all the Crowley spin-off Madame Blavatsky
I was going to say,
stuff,
I knew that from Madame Blavatsky.
The White Brotherhood. So they're kind of like channeling groups that now spin off into these UFO cults that are everywhere. It all really started with like Blavatsky and Crowley and a lot of those guys. But Ashtar is a big figure in those groups, in the White Brotherhood. So when he said Ashtar, I about shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is wild. But the cards that we pulled, the Spirit Wheel cards after, mine was like to the T. Like literally everything pretty much that I'm doing now, the message that you got, as we're reading them out, Kevin's like, this never happens. These cards, this is exactly what you guys have been telling me about. And so it was kind of like this just lightning rod. And I try to put ourselves as much as I can. And lately it's just, we've been hustling, building the company, building Strange Road, And so gotta have like these points in your life where you take a little time and go out and just do something completely different. You'll run into those Kevin type of people. Oh, yeah. You guys are on that path now.
Oh, we found them.
I was about to say, I'm
we
sure
found them.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love
you've
them.
hit a couple of them. Yeah.
But Bowser, perfect example. Like, there's just these people throughout our lives that have, come in and guided us.
Yeah.
And there's something like, if you're on the right path, there's something moving you in a direction. Yeah. But I'm starting to get buzzed up, so I'm talking out of my ass.
That's great.
How long do you guys normally do episodes for?
Whatever.
I don't know if we ever have a time
What time
limit.
is it?
It's 9:30. We've done this for 3.5 hours.
Okay. Well, we should probably wrap this
I
up.
was going to say,
I was with you on that.
if you do me a favor, because I know this is going to be cross-posted.
Yeah.
So for our listeners,
Yeah.
would you guys shout yourself out, where to find you, all that stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Cryptids of the Corn listeners, what's up? I'm Mikey. This is Bub.
Hello.
We are The Strange Road. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at The Strange Road. We have a Twitch channel with not much action, but we're really active streaming on YouTube. We have audio platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts, we're on. I'm Spiral at Spiral Mikey on Instagram. Bub is at Bub Ranley on Twitter.
Yep.
I love
Kyle,
Twitter. Our producer, is at Kyle Stonard on Instagram. If you guys, we'd love to hear from you. We really do appreciate these guys.
Oh, 100%.
Their show is much larger than ours, and we're just honored to have them down in the new studio. And we'd love to hear from you. We're trying to build something cool. We're trying to, do our thing, follow our passion, and we'll see where it takes us. But we're happy to, have some new listeners potentially.
Yes.
So
I think you definitely will.
We really appreciate
you definitely will.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
This was
just
gonna
from when
ball.
we first met you guys at CryptidCon, I was like, this is gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, it just, in the sense of,
Yeah.
I don't even care if we weren't doing a podcast right,
Right.
now.
No, it's just-
I'd
we're just
still want to
hanging
just
out.
hang out and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the best. And
That's all I need to know.
Yep.
we could talk off air about like behind it. Those are the ones that work the best.
Yeah.
When you just sit here and we can have this 3.5
This is
hour
great.
conversation
It went by like that.
and not know it was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
I was only looking because I had to pee.
Right.
That's
That's perfect. That's what I said.
And I'll
After
put that at the
CryptidCon,
beginning of the episode
Yeah.
also. I'm going to
Okay.
cut that out and I'm going to
Yeah,
flip
cool.
it up to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
That way, because not everybody will probably make it through 3.5 hours.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
And-
for sure.
And I forgot to mention, we are from Columbus, Ohio. I know you guys
New drinking buddies.
right down,
Yep,
absolutely.
we're right down the road.
Come out to C-Bus anytime. We'd love to come, see you guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna
we'd
have you
love
guys
to
in the
hang out.
studio.
Absolutely.
But you guys' studio is a lot better than ours.
Yeah, that's for sure.
well,
We may have a bigger following, but you guys have a lot nicer of a studio.
Well, it's been a process, and that's one of the reasons why we probably don't have as big of a following, because it's taken a little bit of time and piece by piece putting this together. So
you just gotta drink more moonshine. It'll come.
yeah, and then we need to drink more moonshine, and maybe, well, we already do the other too much, but it's okay. But we had a great time.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming down.
Again,
Oh, thanks
Thanks
for
for
having us
hanging
in.
out.
The Strange Road, Cryptids of the Corn, Cryptids of the Strange Corn Road,
Yeah.
Cryptids
Swapcast.
of the Strange Corn Road.
And you got to
I
say
love
it
it.
a couple
I
times.
love it.
It's a
Strange Corn Road.
People are
great.
gonna look at the title and not know what the hell this is about.
Well, like
I'm
I
gonna-
said, it's a working title.
No, it's
We'll come up with-
it's what it is.
Okay. Well,
like
the
it.
algorithm's going to hate it, but
Yeah.
we're going to love it.
Screw
I'll
the
push
algorithms.
the hell out of this.
Yeah.
Anyways, anybody that's still with us on YouTube, we love you.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for watching. Thanks for
Hope you
sticking
enjoyed
with
it.
us. This has been super fun. I mean, this is the exact reason why we put this
Yeah.
together
Yeah,
and
great.
did this.
this will not be the last one.
Yeah,
No,
no doubt. Again, anything
Signing
else,
off?
Bub?
No,
Signing
I had a
off?
great time. I had
Guys?
Yeah.
thorough
So
fun.
we have a tradition on our show. I know this is not our studio,
Oh, no.
Do what you
but
do.
I would love to take.
I'm a
like,
terrible host, so
do what
please
you
step
do.
in at any time.
We end every episode with somebody else, with counting down from 3
Okay.
and screaming bye into the mics.
Okay.
The whole goal for home was we're trying to break a mic, because then we get a free one. If it's an audio glitch from Rode, you get a free mic.
Oh, yeah.
So you're just doing some quality control.
Quality test. So I'll count down from 3 and we'll scream if you guys are okay with that.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
How loud are you?
3, 2, 1.
Bye!
That was fun.
Moms are amazing at tracking down hard-to-find items. Library books, socks, you name it. But sometimes help is welcomed. Care.com makes it easy to find babysitters near you. Sitters with the experience and skills your family needs, like after-school pickup and homework help. You just post a job for qualified sitters to apply. And since all Care.com caregivers are background checked, you can feel confident about interviewing and hiring. To get the child care help you need, sign up now at Care.com.